What is composition? You know, that seems to be one of the most difficult things to grasp in art, especially for the beginning artist. So today we're going to do an exercise that will help you kind of self-discover what works and what doesn't work. And then we'll revisit and maybe do another video that will go more in depth and talk about what is good composition and what is composition that's maybe not quite as engaging. So let's talk about what composition is. Composition is the arrangement of elements on your picture plane. And depending on how you arrange those elements, you can guide the viewer's eye to look at things that you want them to specifically look at. You can have them focus on one area as opposed to other areas. And all of that is wrapped into composition. All right? So, let's talk about what you need to have to get started for this exercise. You are going to need white paper, something that you can compose on with some shapes that we're going to be working on. You're going to need some colored paper. If you've got colored paper, Xerox paper, construction paper works really great. I'm at home and I didn't have those items, so you might be in the same boat that I'm in. So I grabbed up napkins to use. You can also use magazines and find colors in magazine pages that you can cut up. Paper plates, if you have colored paper plates. There's probably all kinds of things. Post-it notes. Post-it notes if you have different colors of post-it notes. Things of that nature. You just need at least 4 different colors of paper. You're going to need a pair of scissors. And you will need glue. Glue stick will probably work better. I didn't have a glue stick, so I just used my regular old glue. But whatever you have that you can adhere the little shapes onto the piece of paper will work. And then at the end, I'm going to ask you to take your exercise and develop it into something fun, okay? So you might want a Sharpie marker or some other kind of drawing material that you can use to change what we've done into something else. So, this lesson is going to reinforce the elements and principles of design along with other various art vocabulary. We're going to talk about shape, organic and geometric. We're going to talk about space and how it relates to those shapes as we place them on our surface. We're going to talk about balance and how that works with the various colors that we choose. So we're going to talk about color as well. We're going to talk about variety and unity. We're just going to talk about a lot of things. So, I hope you're prepared to dive in and that this is going to be a great compositional exercise for you. We're going to start out by cutting one circle. What size? Doesn't really matter. You don't want it too small and you don't want it too large. So by the time I get finished cutting this circle, I will have something that's about the size of a 50-cent piece. Or, if you can see it in the palm of my hand, it's about that size right there. Alright, now, I want you to place the circle anywhere on this sheet of paper. And off to the side somewhere, you can make yourself some notes. So maybe on another sheet of paper, I want you to make a note to yourself. What is it that you like about how you got it placed? Okay? What happens when I move it dead center? Let's talk about that. I want you to visualize it. I want you to look at it. And what does that do for you? Does that engage you? Does it make you want to look at it more? Is it interesting? I know, it's just a single dot on a sheet of paper right now, right? Now if I move it, let's say I move it way over here. What does that do for you? Well, let's take a look. That's really far off the edge. Is it more interesting than having it dead center? What happens with all the space around it? Does that work? Again, it's just a single dot, so there's not a lot going on right now, right? Now I'm going to move it kind of high, and where it is, kind of see it here. It's not dead center. It's not close to the edge. It's in a different spot here. Again, I want you to ask yourself, is that more interesting than dead center? Do you like it better than it being on the edge? What works? And then you have to make a decision. Where do you want that big dot? So, center, edge, off center, but not on the edge. Make your decision, and then I want you to glue it down. I'm discovering that napkins are harder to glue down than construction paper. I wish I could find my construction paper, right? Okay. Now here's what I want you to do. We're going to use the same color. I want you to cut out 3 more circles, but I want those circles to be just a little bit smaller. So, here we go. 3 circles here, right? And again, I want you to place those 3 circles. Are you going to put them together in a group? Are you going to have them dead center in a group? Or are you going to let them just kind of float around the circle that you have? How do you want to place them? But once you've placed them, ask yourself those key questions again. How does that look with the space around it? How does it engage with the larger circle? Okay. Does it make you want to look at it more, or does it draw your eye off the page? You know, like if I have these things really off the edge here, does that draw my eye off that page? Once you have made your decision, you're going to glue it down. You can't go back. You just have to kind of glue it down. And I don't want it to look like mine. It needs to look different than mine. You know, you should be doing this, stopping the video before you see what I do, right? All right. Now we're going to do something a little different. You need a contrasting color. So I'm looking through my batch of colors here, and I think I'm going to go with this purple just because. And I want you to cut out 5 squares. Now, those squares can be all the same size, or you could vary the size. What would that look like? Well, I could have 2 of one size, and I could have 3 of another size. I could have all 5 of them different sizes. I could have them all 5 be the same size. The question is, once I've done this, and it doesn't have to be a perfect square, by the way. This is definitely not a perfect square. I should maybe call it more of a rectangle. you need to ask yourself things like, what would be easier to balance? Squares of the same size, squares that are different sized, or squares that maybe half of them are one size and the other half are different size. What's going to be easier to balance? Let's think about balance. There's balance like radial, symmetrical, asymmetrical, and we will be working with asymmetrical for this exercise. But balance is also about the relationship that happens between different elements in your composition. In other words, is it top heavy, bottom heavy when you look at it? Does your eye stray off to the side too much over to the left or the right? Is there an actual place where you can, rest your eye and focus in? And does it just feel good overall? So the balance that I want you to think about is about the relationship that happens between all the different parts of your composition. So I can make my squares be all straight, like so, right? And then I have to look at it and ask those same questions again. You may get tired of these questions, right? How does that space work for you? Is that looking good? Where does your eye gravitate in all of this? Does it go to the big red circle because that's the only one on there that's that size and that shape, right? Or does it go to one of the squares? Or you could maybe turn them at an angle, okay? Now, what would it look like to have some at an angle and some straight? Does that work? Is there unity with that? I don't know. You tell me, okay? Do I want to group some of them? Where they're kind of grouped, like so. What does that do for me? Does it mess up the balance a little bit? Or am I still good? Now keep in mind, I'm still going to be adding some things, so maybe I can change the balance with other shapes, but you don't know yet what shape I'm going to tell you to use, right? Or how many. So, what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to have you stop the video, place your squares, and then come back and see what I've done. I hope you made some cool decisions and that you're happy with your choices. Now what I want you to do is we're going to cut triangles. Oh my goodness, triangles. So now I have an even more complicated decision to make. Do I make an isosceles triangle? Do I make an equilateral triangle? Do I make an obtuse or an acute triangle? What kind of triangle should I make? Should I make them all different? Should I make them the same? What do you think might balance with what you've already done? What would make it more interesting? Maybe we should include a little variety. This could be one place where I could add some variety by making those triangles maybe not equilateral, but it might mess up my balance. Ooh, decisions. Okay, cut triangles for me. I would like for you to cut 7. Again, you can play with the shape. You can play with the size. Your choice, right? I'm going to give you another decision to make. Don't you love these decisions? Oh, yeah. So right now, I have all of my objects are separated. Do they have to be separated? Can some of them overlap? What would that look like? So before you glue down your triangles, I want you to play with what it might look like to have some of those triangles overlap what you've already done. Now, they don't all have to overlap. We could have some that are, separated. I don't care. Doesn't matter. Or we can have them, you can even have them touching but not overlapping. So you have some decisions to make. stop the video, glue down your triangles, and then come back and see what my answer might be. Your answer should be different than mine, I hope, because I want you to think on your own for this. Welcome back. I hope you have some exciting things going on with your composition and that you're starting to get happy with it. So, I said we were going to work with 4 different shapes. So far we've been working with geometric shapes. Let's throw in some organic shapes. This is where we can get our variety in. We can have some organic shapes that are totally different sizes. And this time, I'm going to make you think some more. All right, before we begin, I want you to take a look at what you have. And then I want you to think about what's going on with your composition. Does it look real polka dotted? Like everything is evenly spaced and they're so evenly spaced that there's not a lot of difference going on, so that maybe it's not as interesting and maybe you've lost your focal point. We haven't talked about focal point. Focal point is where you want the viewer's eye to rest. So where do I want that viewer to zoom in on first? And then how do I want to control the viewer to look around this composition and study what's happening and be interested in everything that's going on? That's a little bit more complicated. And we really don't need to talk about it too much right now, but it is something that you can start thinking about even as a beginning artist. We want to keep the viewer on our page. We don't want them looking off to the side over here or off over here, although that is kind of interesting over there, right? I don't know, got a lot of stuff and junk. Anyway, so here's what I'm going to have you do. After you have looked at this and maybe made some notes for yourself. So hopefully you've got a pad of paper. You've been making notes all along to talk yourself through some of this. You know, what looks good, what's not working. Because that's how you start remembering things, right? So I've got this pink napkin because I want to stay with the solids and I don't have any other color. I'm not sure that pink would be the color that I would choose, but why not? And I'm going to cut it up so that I have some to work with. Now, you'll notice one of the things that I have been working with is that when I have asked you to increase the number that you've been working on, we've been working with odd numbers. So we have one circle that's one size, that's 1. We have 3 circles that are smaller, so there's 3. We had 5 squares, variety of size, but there's 5. And then we had 7 triangles, right? Well, when it's all said and done, I have an even number of circles. I may need to work on that when I'm finished with this. We'll see. We'll see if we like it the way it is. So when I do cut this organic shape, I'm going to let you decide how many you need and where they need to go for interest. Now this organic shape can be any shape, and you just take your scissors and just kind of start cutting, make it curl around. You may have a shape in mind that you think might work. Maybe you want to incorporate some straight edges so that it kind of goes a little bit with that, that square. So there's one, right? That's kind of interesting. I want you to stop the video again. Come up with your organic shapes. You can have as many as you want. You can have as few as you want. But make wise decisions and ask yourself those questions and make yourself some notes so that you can remember the decisions you made and why you made them. And then glue it down. So, come back in a minute when you're done and see what I've got. Welcome back. All right, so now you see what I have here. And the fun thing is that this napkin that I used is a lot thinner, and so it's actually, I think when it dries, we're going to have some translucent, some transparent things happening that might be kind of interesting, and we'll see. Anyway, so I'll have a little bit of texture going on. And again, I'm going to have a little bit of texture anyway because the napkin is wrinkling from the glue. And again, that might be a really cool thing that happens. The last thing that you want to do is take a look at what you have. If there's anything that's not quite balanced and you think you need to add something that will balance it a little better, now's the time to do it. That means I can revisit any shape that I have previously cut. If you think you need an extra thing of purple square to balance something out, great. If you think you need maybe a little bit more of the red, the circle, because I only have 4, and even though one is the bigger size, it might look better to have a 5th circle in there, and it could be a different size just to balance out the color a little bit. I don't know. So I'm going to see if I like that. And I have some little bitty circles here that I've cut. And I'm going to put one right there and see. Yeah, I kind of like that better. So I'm going to go ahead and glue that down. These are some of the questions you'll ask yourself. Kind of tweak. Now, do we want to fill up this whole page? No, I don't want you to fill up the whole page. We have some nice white space going on. So what I want you to do next is have fun with this. Now that I have created my compositional exercise and I have shapes all over this page, I want to turn this into something artful. I want to look at it and see if I see anything. I might see a clown face. I might see a village and, pathways. I may just see an abstract that I want to kind of play with more. I want you to take it before you decide on what it is you want to create, and I want you to rotate the page. You might have created it with this direction in mind, but it might look better when you look at it from a different direction. It changes everything. It changes the balance. It changes the way that the shapes interact with each other. So rotate and find your best possible position for you to create with.